This is Dave Canfield, your creature feature preacher, and this is the Creature Feature Preacher column, video blog, podcast, whatever you want to call it, where twice a month I look at the spirituality of something genre related. I am a graduate of Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary. I have a master's degree in theology and a master's degree in public ministry. All that to say that this is absolutely no judgment zone. I come from a big haven of liberal boogerheads. I'm not interested in excluding people. I'm not interested in judging people. I'm not interested in any of the sort of divisive stuff that often gets associated with spirituality. What I'm interested in is why we all love this stuff, is why for us it's almost like going to church sometimes, why it speaks so deeply to the innermost part of us. Um, Nothing excites me more than having conversations like that. And it's to the point where I just had to start doing it like this. So this is what I'm gonna do. So you can find this twice weekly at Screen Anarchy. You can also find it at the Creature Feature Preacher Substack. And pretty soon you're going to be able to see all sorts of things on that Substack because I'm going to be uploading about 40 years of my own creative output onto it. And that's going to include fiction and, oh, geez, tons of reviews, tons of thought pieces, tons of interviews. And I'm really excited about it. We already have a bunch of people on board. Hope you can join us. So today I'm going to be talking about collecting and physical entertainment. I'm a big proponent of physical entertainment, physical media. And the reason, besides all the reasons you usually hear about how things are just more available to you if you actually own a copy of them and you don't have to worry that it's going to disappear, it's because I think that there's a real spirituality behind collecting for me. And that is that I want to save moments in time that have been formative for me, that have spoken to me, that have made me think, that are part of the melange that has become Dave. And I'm guessing for a lot of you too, it's the same thing. There's a world that we build when we collect. And generally, I think it's a world of where we feel happy and where we feel safe and where we feel engaged with important parts of ourselves. And I find that a profoundly spiritual thing. And I am really, really glad to celebrate it whenever I can. This week, I'm going to be talking about releases from, let's see, we've got some stuff from Kino. We've got some stuff from Severin, and I've got one very special release from Masters of Cinema. But let's start with Kino. Um, Here is a copy of Rustler's Rhapsody making its Blu-ray debut. It is a Western comedy. Um, and I think it has a really interesting premise that gets into spirituality a little bit. But first, let's look at the package. You've got the slipcase, which is always nice. You notice I'm anal. I always keep the plastic on my slipcases. And you don't get a flip cover, so get the same art that's on the slipcase. This is a Western comedy that stars Tom Berenger, and it came out in 1985. Now, I know that when we talk about Western comedies, basically we think Blazing Saddles. That's probably the most prominent Western comedy of all time. It's probably the best one of all time. But it's a certain kind of Western comedy, and this is a different kind. This isn't just a Western comedy that's there for slapstick purposes. This has slapstick in it. It has broad comedy in it, but it sort of flips the script on something like Blazing Saddles by centering on its story and its characters, and it's kind of romantic in the middle of also being a spoof of the genre. You have Rex O'Hurley, plucked out of the land of black and white serials of the 40s and 50s, and dropped into a mainstream modern Western. The only question is can you be a good guy in a land where the good guys don't always win? And this is a film that dissects that in some really fun ways. They basically tear through every single Western trope that you can think of. And they do it, like I said, in the middle with some nice broad comedy and but also some heartfelt exploration. Marilu Henner from Taxi plays um sorry, she plays a character in this film. G.W. Bailey, who you'll remember from MASH, plays a character in this film. Andy Griffith, whom I hope you at least have heard of, from the Andy Griffith Show, plays a character in this film. And Patrick Wayne, John Wayne's son, plays a character in this film. Uh, Basically, I'm not going to tell you any more about the plot because I think you're already going to know if you're interested here. But this is one of those movies in the 1980s that I think is a little neglected. It's really charming and it's really fun. Bombed when it came out, actually, like a lot of westerns and western comedies um, from the '60s onward have. And because of that, I don't think it's remembered the way that it ought to be. Kudos for Kino for putting this out there. Next up is a movie that I really love called Mouse Hunt. Mouse Hunt stars Nathan Lane and Lee Evans and is getting an upgrade here to 4K and looks absolutely fantastic. This is Gore Verbinski's debut film, and Gore Verbinski went on to do, of course, the American remake of The Ring, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I think he made the first two or three of those. Um, and is just all around a really good filmmaker who's done some really interesting films over the years. This movie is kind of a kitchen sink comedy. It has some things in common with Home Alone. It has some things in common with, I think, movies like Baby's Day Out. Um, because what it's about these two guys who inherit a dilapidated old mansion, and the only way that they can make money off of it is by killing the mouse, getting rid of the mouse that's taken up residence in the home. Trouble is, this mouse is smarter than both of them combined. And what you get is a bunch of Rube Goldberg type comedy. Um, Kind of like you see in in the Money Trap. Um, with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long from this period. It is a really, really, really funny slapstick. One thing leads to another thing, leads to a small disaster, leads to a big disaster type comedy. And I really recommend it. This has a commentary on it by Hats Off Entertainment's Joe Ramone and some deleted scenes. And I think Kino has done a really good job presenting it. What on earth is spiritual at all about something like this? Did you used to, combine your toys when you were a kid and use them in ways that weren't expected and make like perpetual motion machines and combine your Legos and your blocks and your Hot Wheels tracks and whatever else? Did you ever play video games that sort of had those movies? Did you ever watch the movie Mouse or play the game Mousetrap? This is sort of a motion picture embodiment of that sort of spirit of the imagination, of play, of just having a good time, and using your imagination to build your own sort of universe. This movie very much builds its own universe, and for that reason, I find it kind of spiritually refreshing and celebrative and neat. So check it out. Last but not least from Kino is the movie I, Madman. So this movie is about a young woman played by Jenny Wright, whom you'll remember from Lawnmower Man, but probably even more from Near Dark, which is Catherine Bigelow's underrated and hard to find vampire movie. Um, and here we see the murderer in the movie. And we're going to talk about him more in a second. But first, let's look at the packaging. You get the slipcase, but here you get a flip, flip slip case. And there again is Jenny Wright reading her cheap pulp novel, and she's so intense in her reading of it that it brings this madman out of its pages, and he begins to stalk her, and he begins to stalk her friends. This is a really, really great movie. It should not have been as good as it is. It could have been a cheap throw off. Instead, you get this really stylish, kind of homage to pulp and to the love affair that we all have with cereals. And no, I don't mean breakfast cereals, cereals like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and detective cereals and Pulp Fiction. Read a book. Anyway, this is just such a fun movie, and it really deals with the way that narrative impacts us and pulls us into its world, and uh, how important it is to our imaginations to be able to take those journeys. Um, it's also really fun because it came out in 1989, and it's gory, and it has great monster makeup in it, and I just really can't recommend it enough. Lots of extras on here. Some are archival from the previous Shout Factory release. I'll read here: audio commentary by director Thibaut Takex and artistic supervisor Random William Cook, who also plays the crazy villain in this movie. You get a new visual essay from Chris O'Neill called "Much of Madness, More of Sin," and you get a making of, which is really informative, called "Ripped from the Pages: The Making of I, Madman," that interviews principals and principal crew from this film. This is a great movie, and if you at all love movies from the 1980s, particularly horror movies from the 1980s, you should go out of your way to get it, and it's a really nice presentation of it. Thank you, Kino. Next, moving on to Severin. What can I say about Severin? Severin has, man, they have upped the box off or the box set approach to releases. They have ups done up, improved on the physical packaging of releases. They have done so many great, cool things and rescued so many great, cool movies. And one we're going to talk about today, and you may be surprised I want to talk about it from a spiritual point of view or not. It's called Entertaining Mr. Sloan. And here you get one of their really big, thick release boxes. And you'll see words associated with this movie like kinky and enormously funny and sick and outrageous and shadiest. And all those things are true. And I absolutely love this film. And I absolutely love this film from a spiritual point of view. This film was made in 1970s or 1970, and it's based on a long running play by a guy named uh, Joe Orton. Um, and it's rooted in the sexual revolution that people were talking about so much at the time. Here we have a character named Mr. Sloan, who's like this buff young sociopath who gets picked up in a graveyard by Beryl Reed, who's an older woman who sort of collects people like this. And then her brother, played by the enormously skeevy Harry Andrews, enters into the picture, and soon these two people are fighting over the affections of Mr. Sloan. So you have a movie made in 1970 that is a satire of sexual revolution behavior, and it couldn't be more fun. And it couldn't be more insightful. I think that this is a movie the Coen brothers could remake this movie because it's essentially about really awful people doing awful things to each other. Now, in case you think I love this movie because I'm a prude, this is an LGBTQ movie that was made in 1970s. I am not a prude. I have friends who are into polyamory. I have friends who are abstinent. I have friends who are not sure what their gender is, they're gender fluid or they're trans. I have a trans child. I love movies like this that call into question established norms. um but one really special thing I think this movie does is it talks about how those norms can be problematic, but also how rebelling against them can be problematic, and the dark turns that both those things can take. Even as it's very obviously a celebration of our interest in asking deep questions about spirituality. I highly recommend this film. It's really great. There's a look at the inside. There's no flip disc on this film. Tons of extras. Audio commentary with film historian Nathaniel Thompson and Orton scholar Dr. Emma Parker. Archival interview with the star, Mr. Sloan himself, Peter McEnery. All My Sloan, 60 Years of Joe Orton's Mr. Sloan, featuring Malcolm McDowell and Maxwell Caulfield, who were in the play at various times, and think it's a very important part of their careers. Archival interview with John Lahr, author of Prick Up Your Ears, the biography of Joe Orton. Archival interview with Leonie Orton, remembering her brother. Uh, uh, a featurette called Orton-esque, screenwriter David McGevory on the lasting influence of Joe Orton, and active character Rosie White on the inimitable identities of Beryl Reed. Archival locations featurette with Richard Dockeray, and Threads of Desire, costume and sexuality in entertaining Mr. Sloan, video essay by costume historian Lisa Rose. So a lot of imagination went into producing the extras for this. A lot of food for thought when it comes to your own feelings about the film, and a really fantastic presentation from Severin. This is Blu-ray, not 4K. We may see a 4K release of this down the road just because of the importance of the film. But this is a really great film if you love film from the 70s and want to learn more about the way films and popular media were changing around that time. Next film up from Severin is a very, very serious film. And I saw it by accident. Somebody said, "Hey, do you want to stay for this press screening?" I had no idea what it was. And I saw it back in 2002 when it first came out. It is the magnificent In My Skin by Marina Devan. First, let's look at the packaging. You can see that wonderful package, big, thick cardboard box. And we see we're getting a 4K upgrade. I think previous editions of this film, available in the US anyway, were only on DVD, and kept mine for many, many years. Really glad to have an upgrade. And it looks absolutely fabulous, by the way. It looks and sounds fabulous. This is a film about a young woman who experiences a traumatic injury, and that trauma leads her to start deconstructing herself in a lot of different ways and taking charge of her identity in different ways, and arguing with people in her life, loved ones and business associates, about her identity, and having to hide in a world where the way that she has chosen to identify is not accepted. And the reason for all of this is it involves self-cannibalism and cannibalism. This is a really, really interesting, very, very hard to watch movie that deals deeply with all those subjects. It is made by and stars Marina Devan. Uh, it is biographical and not entirely autobiographical. There are changes made to Marina's personal story, but this is a great film for anybody who's had to struggle with any of those subjects, who loves horror movies. Um, Really, really, really recommend it. And it had a profound impact on me when I saw it, and broadening my own understanding of identity formation and personal spiritual identification. I really, really, really love this movie and am grateful for it. And listen to the crazy extras that are on this movie. Commentary by writer, director, star Marina Devan. These are all on the UHD. Commentary by film critic, Fantasia International Film Festival programmer Justine Smith. Exclusive Faculty of Horror episode on In My Skin with Andrea Subasati and Alexandra West. French trailer and US trailer. On the Blu-ray, you get an introduction by Kayla Janice, author of The House of Psychotic Women, one of the absolute, you know, most important feminist looks at horror film that's ever been published. Exposed Skin, interview with Marina Devan, very, very informative. Fear of Female Cannibal, Barbara Creed, author of The Monstrous Feminine on In My Skin. Monstrous Feminine, again, seminal, very important work of film horror feminist crit. Under the Surface, video essay by Dr. Alexandria Heller Nicholas, author of, among many books, Thousand Women in Horror, 1896, 2018. So you get like a who's who of academic scholarship being brought to bear on this film. Could not, I mean, really, there's only one or two other people I wish I'd have seen here. Um, but kudos to Severin for such a magnificent pack of extras. You also get Marina Van Devan's student shorts, two of those, and you get short films from a couple of filmmakers, and one of them has commentary. So, wow, wow. This is a great version of this film. I'm going to guess it's going to be more or less the best one that anybody ever releases. I can't see even a need probably to upgrade to this. Um, cannot wait for it to get out in the world and people to see it. All right, coming up is something that's far more silly. It is the silliest thing I'm going to talk about today, and it's available in two versions, one of which I believe is out of print, but it's important to mention it for reasons that will become apparent, and the other which is bland. Can something be bland new? It's nice and it's new. I haven't seen it before, but it was kind of bland. I don't know what voice that is. Anyway, the films I'm going to talk about here are the Blood Island movies. Blood Island movies were movies made by Eddie Romero and these other filmmakers in the Philippines because they can make them super cheap there. And if you have ever patched together a homemade Halloween costume or built a paper mache monster of any kind, or just loved cheapo practical effects and gonzo horror movies that sort of lope from event to event that aren't all that. Probably nobody's doing a master's thesis on these films. That's what I'm saying. Now watch all these people who've done master's thesis on horror are going to get a hold of me and tell me I'm an idiot. That's okay. Sometimes I am. Anyway, so you get with this set, which is out of print, and you can get on the secondary market. You get Island of Living Horror, Beast of Blood, Terror is a Man, and the Mad Doctor of Blood Island. Um, you also get flippable slips for all four of those films, as well as them individually on 4 discs, and you get the soundtrack on a 5th disc to Mad Doctor of Blood Island. There we go. And for that reason, I am keeping this set because I love the art and I love the soundtrack, and I love having those options. I like having them on all one set or on 1 disc each. But Severin has gone through and they've done a 4K restore. Now these are on Blu-ray, but they aren't so they aren't 4K discs, but they have undergone 4K restoration, and they look and they sound better than Eddie Romero probably ever expected these movies to sound. You'll see this box, really cool box, again, really thick, and a nice way to package a disc. A bit of new cover art, no flip sleeve here, and all of the films are on 2 discs. So you're missing the flip covers. You are missing the soundtrack to Mad Doctor of Blood Island, but these are gonzo, total fun to throw on at a party movies. And I really recommend you you think about picking them up. Plus, they look better and sound better here than ever before. They ported over all the other extras from the previous 4 disc set that that Severin did, and so no complaints really. I am wondering where that soundtrack went. They probably didn't have the rights to it anymore. That's a drag, but uh, really, really fun stuff. Um, and one of the reasons it's fun too, and this is just really personal, so I'm going to indulge myself for a minute, is there are pictures of these movies in Dennis Gifford's Pictorial History of the Horror Movies. So before cable, before the internet or being able to go to a video store, the only way that you could find out about old horror movies was in books and magazines. And this was one of the books that you wanted to have when you were a kid if you were into horror movies. And it has just hundreds of photos from movies that, quite frankly, you thought you'd never be able to see as long as you lived. And so this was your little archive that you kept to feed your monster fix whenever you wanted to look at monsters. Um, and I have made it a point to actually watch every single movie that is pictured in this book. And as you can see, they have a lot of pictures in this book. So there we go. Um, and that's really, really, really been fun. Um, but it also has pictures of something else that I'm going to talk about next. And that is, it has pictures from a kind of movie that I had never heard of called creamy movies. To say that I was excited to get this box set in the mail is an absolute understatement. It is Eureka's Masters of Horror or Masters of Cinema, Terror in the Fog, The Wallace Creamy at CCC. This is, I believe, 6 films that are crime thrillers that have touches of horror that are in German. They were made in Germany, hence the translation creamy from crime. And they were also set in London. So you have German movies set in London that are crime thrillers that have touches of horror. So they do everything but throw Scooby-Doo into this mofo. I was so excited to get these. They're these, beautiful movies that remind you of serials and cheap detective fiction. So there's another I Madman sort of like connection. It's a precursor to giallo. So these are all in black and white, but you have the gloved hands reaching in, and you have madmen in masks running around killing people one by one, and you know different people being accused and then trying to um, figure out who the real killer is. These are just they're so fun. I'm also going to show you some artwork for these films. And here's the artwork for Curse of the Yellow Snake and The Strangler of Blackmore Castle and the Mad Executioners and The Monster of London City and The Racetrack Murders. Just a hoot, just a real fun experience. You get the nice little inset that you can help keep your box clean. Box is a nice thick box. Oh, and it's beautifully decorated. I want to highlight that. Just beautifully decorated. I hope they do another one of these box sets. You also get a big booklet chocked with photos and essays from the movies. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Sorry, guys, I'm not real good at holding these things up to the camera. You get essays from Howard Hughes. No, not that Howard Hughes. He had a bunch of Barry Forshaw and Holger Hasse. So the part of you that wants to dress up like Sherlock Holmes and run around, or a detective, and accuse people and look for clues and all this sort of nonsense, or try to fight back the evil cult. That's what these movies are for. That's the part of your childhood they're going to appeal to. That's the part of your wonderful, I do believe, God-given imagination needs. You need that fix of childhood joy and fantasy and wonderment and spookiness and weirdness. That's going to be it for this issue. For this issue. For pages, there's no pages. There's just me, a talking head, surrounded by other heads, talking to you about where you can find the Creature Feature Preacher's writing. You can find the Creature Feature Preacher, at Substack under Creature Feature Preacher. Just go to Substack and type that up. You can also see lots of other stuff I've written on Screen Anarchy. And you can also find me at mindframesfilm.com, where I do a podcast that's on the Now Playing Network with Michael Cockrell called Mind Frames, where we take a film and then we pick a theme and we frame it in both of our minds. With that, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for coming. Um, Remember, I do this because I want you to know that what you love matters, and why you love it matters, and that you are a big geek and you need to be celebrated for no other reason. Thanks for sharing this time with me. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Once I figure out how to leave a meeting. There we go.